Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brothers here and brothers and sisters online. This week, inshallah, we're going to be doing 23rd flash. So it's lemalar, the 23rd lema of Bediüzzaman Said Nursi. I will make a reminder a bit later on, let the rest of the crew come in. There's only 9 people online at the moment. Then I'll explain, because there's a change we're going to have soon. And I'll do it probably towards the end. It'll be better so we get everyone in there, inshallah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Elhamdülillahi Rabbil alemin. Ve salatu ve selamu aleyke. Seyyidina Seyyidul hayrul enam. Muhammedur Resulullah sallallahu teala aleyhi ve sellem. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Subhaneke la ilme lena illa ma allamtena inneke entel alimul hakim. Subhaneke la fehme lena illa ma fehemtena inneke entel cevadul kerim. Rabbi şrah li sadri ve yesir li emri ve hlul ukdeten min lisani yafkahu kavli ve ufevvidu emri ilallah innallâhe basirun bin ibad. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Inshallah, the 23rd word is about, sorry, it's flashes, isn't it? Flashes, I keep on mispronouncing it or missaying it. The 23rd flash is based on explanation of materialism and an alternative suggestion. Bediüzzaman Said Nursi mainly focuses on existence, and he says since there is existence, it had to have come from somewhere, appeared somehow, and there are only 4 possible ways that it could have come into being. We call this, when I teach at the university, we call it the default argument. Default argument for God. We gave that title. The reason we gave it the title of default argument, because he says there are only 4 possible explanations. The first one is causes created it. So whatever exists, it occurred because of causes, causality. The second is it formed itself. Teşekkele bi nefsi. It formed itself. The third one is it is natural. Nature creates it, and nature necessitates its existence. That's the third possibility. And the last one is Allah created everything. So God created everything. There's 4 possibilities. He says there are no other possibilities. And he says if we can sort of repudiate the first 3 possibilities, then by default you have to accept the 4th. That's why we call it the default argument. So indeed, since beings exist, and this cannot be denied, can we deny existence? No. We see it, we hear it, we touch it, we smell it, we experience it. So existence is there. Nobody denies it, although there are some people deny existence too. I shouldn't say that. They think we live in some sort of a simulation or something. It's like Matrix-like world, but the reality is
still existence, even if it is not like
Matrix. Yeah, but doesn't have physical existence. Whereas in reality, if you look at all the classical Ahl Sunnat wal Jamaat theology, Aqidah, you will see in most of them, one of the first principles is the existence of matter is haq, truth. Most of those classical theological books have this. So matter exists. It's a reality. Because if you deny that, then you are indirectly denying the Khaliq name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Al-Khaliq. He is the creator. Or one of his attributes, which is Tekween, the originator. it means he does not have the power to create matter. He is, hasha, deceiving us, in an imaginary world. We don't really exist. Then it wipes out many of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Radzaq, all of these names. You can count many names there. Designer, all of these things. That is why, in Islamic theology, we don't accept such a thing as, we live in an imaginary world or, some sort of a simulation, Anyone, who insists on that, there are people like that anyway, I can tell you. And it's spreading around too, You can just tell them to go and put their hand in a fire. Let's see if it's a simulation or not.
Or how good is the simulation?
Yeah.
Depending on the pill quality.
Yeah. Take the red pill or the blue pill or whatever, Anyway, so Bediüzzaman Said Nursi says existence is real since it cannot be denied. And also since each being, whether it's material or inanimate or animate beings, living beings, we can see that they come into existence in a wise, with hikmah, in an artistic fashion. Not just, in a coincidental way. Everything is artistic. Everything has proportion. That is why the Quran says, we have created everything with due measure. Inna kulla shay'in khalaqnahu biqadar. It says we created everything with measure, with proportion, with precision. And you can prove that just by looking at yourself and on the mirror. Have a look at yourself, Are you disproportionate? You're not. Everything that you have on your face is in an exact location where it should be. You cannot mess around with it. If you did, it won't function perfectly. In a humorous way, I always say this, you can go and try it in your imagination, You can take your nose, your mouth, your eye, place it somewhere else in your head. Put it on top of your head, put your nose on the side or something. See what happens to that beautiful symmetry. So there's a symmetry, there's a beauty there where everything is supposed to be. They make cars, they put the headlights in the front. Why? That's the place it should be. They measure, it's all clinical, ratio there. And the eyes are exactly where they are. Ears, look, most animals, when you look at their ears, if there's a sound, they turn, the ears. But look at human ears, all the curvature and everything. It pulls the sound in there. So the design is unbelievable. So there's wisdom there and there's design there. And since each is not outside time, but is being continuously renewed, because all these, beautiful, amazing beings, they keep on being renewed. Now just imagine this. If everyone in the world, all the geniuses, when we speak academically and we give examples, we try to use proofs, evidences from science, and we always try to cite someone who's expert in that field, We say, according to Fermi, for example, according to Planck, we give these famous scientists as citations, don't we? Whatever field we are in. But here's the interesting thing. If you get all these scientists in the world, the ones living now, and all the most experts in the world, geniuses, I guarantee you they cannot create a fly. Just a single fly. It is impossible. They cannot even design a thing now. A living cell. They try to, manipulate its DNA and things like that, but from zero, they cannot design a thing. But imagine how many proteins, how many cells a simple fly has. Imagine designing that, the structure of a fly. I can tell you it's much, much more perfect than the most expensive, aircrafts. It's design, a fly. But imagine this, when winter comes, do we see any flies now around? Like in Australia, it's winter at the moment. We don't in Melbourne. Wait till spring comes and summer. You're going to see thousands, millions of them around. Where did they just pop out from? We cannot even design one, but suddenly you see millions of them appear. Look at the power. And logic says when you produce something in high quantities, quality drops. But we don't see this in nature. Quality does not drop. Is it the same? Like, for example, you can go and get a cheap car, but you can go and get a, for example, Porsche 911 Turbo Carrera or something like that. Just compare them. See, the cheaper it is, the more faults, the more issues it has. But when you look at nature, it's not like that. Whatever is produced, it's produced in an amazing way. It's a reality. We see it. So, since this is the situation, then, or falsifier or denier of the truth, people who deny the truth, you are bound to say, since this is the reality, either that the causes created the beings in the world, causes created them. For example, this animal, that is to say, it comes into existence through the coming of together of causes, or that it forms itself, or that its coming into existence is a requirement and a necessary effect of nature, or there is that it is created through the power of one all-powerful and all-glorious, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are the only possibilities he's saying, philosophically. Since reason can find no way apart from these four, if the first three are definitely proved to be impossible, the first three alternatives, invalid and absurd, the way of divine unity, Tawheed, which is the fourth way, will necessarily and evidently and without doubt or suspicion be proved as true, isn't it? If you can prove that the first possibilities are not really a possibility, they are impossibilities, then by default you have to accept the fourth way. Because you can prove that the first three are impossibilities, but you cannot prove the fourth is an impossibility. It's a simple logic there. So let us look at the first way. This to imagine that the formation of existence of things, creatures, living beings occurs through the coming together of causes in the universe. So the universe appeared, billions of years passed, and all the causality in the universe, cause and effect, suddenly produce living beings. Is this possible? Well, it is an impossibility. Why? Imagine that there is a pharmacy in which are found hundreds of jars and fields filled with quite different substances. So you have this pharmacy, and you have all these little jars, and there are chemicals in them, all different chemicals. A living portion and a living remedy are required from those medicaments, those different chemicals. So we go to the pharmacy and see that they are to be found there in abundance, yet in great variety. We examine each of the portions and we see that the ingredients have been taken in varying but precise amounts from each of the jars, an ounce from this, 3 from that, 7 from the next, and so on. If 1 ounce too much or too little had been taken, the portion that they want to produce would not have been a living thing and would not have displayed its special quality. So there's a living thing, or whatever it is, like a portion, And it's made up of all these chemicals, but each chemical, you have to get a certain amount and make the mixture so that that can occur. If you put a little bit, more or less, it doesn't give that result. So next, we study the living remedy. Again, the ingredients have been taken from the jars in particular measures so that if even the most minute amount is too much or too little had been taken, the remedy would lose its special property. Now, although the jars number more than 50 different, the ingredients have been taken from each according to the measures and amounts that are all different. Is it in any way possible or probable that these fields and jars should be or should have been knocked over by a strange coincidence and sudden gust of wind, and that only the precise, though different amounts that have been taken from each of them should have been split on the ground and then arrange themselves and come together to form the remedy? Is it possible? Think about it. Now, disbelievers say there is a possibility. All right. Like, I use a different example here, taking this example from Bediüzzaman Said Nursi. There are other people who gave different examples, like Fred Hoyle, one philosopher. He says, imagine an airplane graveyard. They have them a lot in America, in the deserts usually. All these old airplanes, parts, broken apart, And he says, just imagine a twister goes through that yard. Everything is mixed, in that strong winds. And then after it goes through, by coincidence, those parts of the aeroplanes, different aeroplanes, came together and formed a 747 Boeing Jumbo. And it's working too. What is the possibility of that? And, I usually use the example that I say, imagine that in your garage, backyard or whatever, you have these shelves and there are different paints, tins of paints in there. And you get this huge wind, and all the shelf just falls down and all those paints just mix up on the floor. And you go and have a look, Mona Lisa appeared. Painting of Mona Lisa by spilling. But at the end of the day, even if you give that a possibility of, quadrillion to one or something, which is not even possible, but let us say, you say, maybe it is possible. Picture of Mona Lisa is not a living thing.
And also, where did the pain come from?
Yeah, in the first place, yeah. Because this is talking about causality, like you said. For a causality to occur, two or three or more things supposed to be coinciding. They need to coincide, so causality occurs. But if those elements, components are not there as well, how can causality exist then? So for causality itself to exist, it needs to be created as well. It needs to be created as well. So causality argument here collapses. When you think about it, it becomes an impossibility. Similarly, he says, each living being may be likened to the living portion in the comparison, in the analogy, and each plant to a living remedy, for they are composed of matter that has been taken in most precise measure from truly numerous and truly various substances. Do you know that I read somewhere when the sperm cell goes into the ovum, the female ovum, they get it fertilizes it, and then it starts dividing, dividing and multiplying, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. It keeps on multiplying. And during that multiplication process, they say that even if one cell was to be misplaced, has to be, everything has to go into the right place. Yeah. Imagine it keeps on growing. It becomes a fetus. Everything has to go into the right spot during the design of that.
It's not just creating, but also placement.
It's placement there, specific placement. If things don't go the right way, they say, I read this somewhere in a research, they say that, for example, a person, the baby's tongue would come out of its tummy or something. The air might end up in the feet or something. So everything is placed exactly where they should be. You don't see the designer. How when you look at those car manufacturers where the robots are putting everything together, the arms are coming, putting the thing there, putting the thing, they're making the car. We see the same thing, much, much more complex, and you don't see any arms there. But there's something there. Someone is designing that. If you don't believe it that way, then you have to give it to something else. You cannot give it to causality, as he says, because causality doesn't have an intellect. And causality does not always result in a, positive thing. Yeah. It can end up in a disaster as well. But with all the creatures, you have a look. They're 99% of them perfect. You have some defect births, yeah. And they say then, why there are people who are born with defect and things like that? Usually there are other reasons for that too. Maybe the mother, the father, there's some genetic issues with them, or they used alcohol, drugs. There could be many other things that may cause that baby to be born like that. But in reality, you look at, nature, everything is functioning beautifully. The second impossibility is if everything is not attributed to all-powerful and all-glorious Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is the single one of unity, tawheed, and is attributed to causes, it necessitates that many of the elements and causes present in the universe intervene in the being of every animate creature. So a human being has in his or her body roughly about 86 trillion living cells, they say. Close to 100 trillion living cells we have, all of us. And each cell is like a chemical factory. It's functioning so perfectly, every cell. And there's billions and billions of them in our body. If we don't give the design and control and the governance of all of these cells to one all-powerful being, then each cell needs to have the intellect. Yeah? Each cell has to know exactly what's going on with the entire body. They have to have that knowledge so they can function harmoniously with the rest of the cells, isn't it? That's the truth. So would you prefer that logic or the other logic? Whereas that different and mutually opposing and conflicting causes, because causes can be opposing and conflicting as well, should come together of their own accord in complete order and harmony, with the finest balance in perfect concord in the being of a tiny creature like a fly, as I said before. Even in the fly's body, all of these elements are coming together, working, in coherently, working coherently with each other. Performing duties, all of them are performing duties. Such as an obvious impossibility that anyone with even an iota of consciousness would say, this is impossible. It could not be. In fact, in one place, Bediüzzaman says, if you give a donkey intelligence, and say to the donkey that this life, these creatures are the result or product of coincidences, the donkey will laugh at you. It is a reality, isn't it? So the tiny body of a fly is connected with the most of the elements and causes in the universe. Isn't that correct? Tiny body of the fly, because if you look at the cells, living tissue of the fly, it is also made up of, proteins and various other like sugars and things like that, DNA, RNA. And those things are made up of atoms. Atoms are made up of subatomic particles, electrons, neutrons, protons, gluons, quarks, all these little things that we cannot even see. And they all supposed to be working together harmoniously in order to keep that creature, all together. From, avoid falling apart. Everything has to be doing a duty there. So either you have to give each atom in the universe an absolute intellect, every atom. So make gods out of every atom in the universe, or you accept one God who has them, the all knowledge, all knowledgeable, and all powerful. That is the two options there. The third impossibility is, it is an established rule that if a being has unity, it can only have issued from a single being. From one hand, particularly if it displays a comprehensive life within a perfect order and sensitive balance, it demonstrates self-evidently that it did not issue from numerous hands. Because, there's a simple saying in English, too many chefs or cooks spoil the broth. If there's perfection, unity there, that means there's one person in charge doing everything there, knows exactly where everything should go. You cannot have like two mayors in a town. Yeah. You cannot have two presidents in a country. You cannot have two captains in a ship, on a ship. There'll be chaos. It'll always be chaos. When one will say, let's go that way, the other one will say, let's go that way.
And also, on the other side of the universe, same rules apply. Same atoms.
Yes. The universe is isotropic. It's homogeneous. No matter which part of the universe we study, we see exactly the same laws apply. Yesterday, somebody messaged me from Europe, a friend of mine, and he was asking about gravity. He was trying to understand gravity. Because there is a formula in gravity where when the distance grows between two masses, the gravitational pull drops down, decreases. And he said to me, then how does it work with the Earth? If we go higher and higher, does that mean the pull weakens, the gravitational pull? And I said, the standard is this, 9.8, we call it meters per second squared, the gravitational pull. This is applicable up to 100 kilometers. After that, as you go higher, it starts dropping to 9.5. 400 kilometers above the Earth, it's like 8.7 or something. So the pull gets weaker as you go more distance, because between two masses, it's easily mathematically figured out. But it's amazing, When you drop something, it also exaggerates. Keeps on getting faster and faster. And another amazing things, and I explained to that brother as well, I said, everything is pulled with the same force. With the same force. You can get a bowling ball and a paper in a vacuum. You release them, they drop exactly the same. Or a feather in a ball. It's been tested. The reason when there is air, the feather falls slower because of friction. Otherwise, you empty the thing, they do it. There are videos which they tested this. They get a bowling ball, it's 5-6 kilograms, and a feather, they drop exactly the same. It's amazing. So we see this unbelievable design. It's in front of us, but they deny this design. How do you deny design? How do you deny design? Like I gave one example somewhere. When people don't want to believe, no matter what you do, they're not going to believe. I gave this example. I said, when you look at the painting of Mona Lisa, that painting indicates to Leonardo da Vinci, isn't it? It's painter, because there's a beautiful design there. And then this guy says to me, but we know who Leonardo da Vinci is. He lived in, 17, 18, whenever he lived in a few hundred years ago. We know who he is and things like that. Then I said to that person, if you go and find a picture, which we do, painting, on a cave wall, 17,000 years old, which we have found here in Australia. Do you look at that painting, a kangaroo or something like that? Do you say, we don't know the designer, so there's no designer?
It's very simple.
Even the most simplest, when you look at that painting, somebody designed that. Just compare that to yourself, man. Compare it to a butterfly, compare it to a bird. Look at the beautiful colors on them, the symmetry in every creature. And you don't see the designer there. It's unbelievable. Or you're just being stubborn. Stubborn because you don't want responsibility. That's the reality. You don't want responsibility because when you say you believe, what comes after that? Responsibility. You have to be good. Yeah. Don't cheat people, don't lie.
There's also background.
There's other things,
Like Shaitan
Yeah.
doesn't stop, always tries to deny those facts.
Yeah, of course, it is the shaitan's job, the iblis's job, but the biggest fault is not iblis, it's yourself. It's the nafs. Because, during Ramadan, they say all the shaitans are being chained up. People still go and commit sins because the nafs there, nafs, it's it's like that person who kept on sinning, and then he said, may that shaitan burn in hell and things like that. And shaitan appeared to him. He said, that's enough. You're the one who's doing it. Why you keep on blaming me? It's similar, isn't it? When you think about it. Yeah. And the second way is, you can tell me when the thing is. And the second way is, this is expressed by some people as well. Teşekkele bi nefsi. Teşekkülü bi nefsi. Everything formed itself. That's the weirdest argument, isn't it? But you know that there are actual philosophers who argued that. There's a person, I forgot his name now. He's a famous philosopher. He says maybe the universe created itself in order to avoid God. Look at the logic. Do you know that for something to create itself, it has to exist before it existed?
That's a lecture.
What kind of a logic is that? So Bediüzzaman says, oh, you obstinate denier. Obstinate. You're
Stubborn, something like
stubborn, obstinate, yeah. Your egotism has made you so stupid, Bediüzzaman uses that, that somehow you decided to accept 100 impossibilities all at once. For you yourself are being and not some simple substance that is inanimate and unchanging. We are not made up of some substance which is inanimate or unchanging. It keeps on changing. You know, in our body, cells are dying, they are renewed. It's continuous renewal in our bodies. It's unbelievable. Millions of things that are happening in the human body, all of us now, right this moment, we're not even aware of. And they're all happening to keep us alive. Keep us alive. You resemble an extremely well-ordered machine that is constantly being renewed and a wonderful palace that is undergoing continuous change, the human body. Particles are working unceasingly. In your body has a connection and mutual relation with the universe, in particular with regard to sustenance and perpetuation of your species and the particles. So for human beings to exist, we need to have a connection with the entire universe. Yeah, of course, because the order needs to continue so that we can exist. We are in need of the sun, for example. It's 150 million kilometers away. Without that, we can't live. All the ingredients in the atmosphere, we need them. All the minerals in the soil, we need them. You see? We are connected to everything. But interesting here, this is like maybe 80, 90 years ago he wrote this, which something in quantum physics had not been discovered yet. He says you have a connection with the universe. Now, we know now when quantum entanglement occurs, two particles, when they get entangled, let us say two photons or two electrons, if you separate the two particles by 10 billion light years, they are still connected somehow. It's been proven. They still have a connection. The state of the part. You know what happens? Let us say, I'm just giving an example. This one has an up spin, this one has a down spin, let us say. We can't know until we measure. That is the thing. It's unknown. But when you separate two particles, let us say by a light year, when you measure this, and let us say it has an up spin, and the other one is 100% has a down spin, 100%. But if you measure this first, and this has an upspin, then this one has a downspin. That's interesting, isn't it?
Spooky.
It is spooky.
That's what Einstein calls it.
Because when you don't measure it, they are both having up and down spins at the same time. How's that possible? So they're spinning this way and that way at the same time until you measure them. When you measure them, that's it. It is like you go to let us say, to the market, you buy shoes, you come back home, you open the box, there's only the right shoe there. You know, you go back to the store, you said, I left the left shoe there, then they take it and give it to you. It's pair, yeah? If you don't open the box, it doesn't matter whether the left is missing or the right. You go there, they say, oh, there's a right shoe here. You open your box, it'll be in the left one. Definitely. That's quantum physics. But did you see the connection doesn't go? So in the past, they used to think, physicists, that universe was local. You know, we all had our local systems. Now they realize there's no such a thing as locality. Everything is connected. It's like a one big unit. Billions of light years, but one big unit.
Universe.
Uni. And that's why it's interesting here. He says that you have a connection. Your body has a connection to the universe. And you can derive many things from arguments from this. Like, for example, our bodies have iron, for example, the metal iron atoms, yeah, they are only produced in the stars, at the cores of stars, in supernova explosions. When the star collapses on itself, iron, that's the only way it gets produced, which means you have stardust in your body. That's what it means. Your body is made up of star. That's what it means. So you connected to everything. It's a reality. Amazing, you know. Who is putting this entire universe together like that? And it's making it function. If it wasn't one all-knowing, all-powerful creator, there is no other explanation. You know, who is going to be applying the same laws everywhere throughout the universe then? So if you do not accept that the particles in your body are tiny officials in motion, accordance with the law of the pre-eternal, all-powerful one, or that they are an army, or the nibs of the pen of the divine determining, kader, with each particle as the nib of a pen. That's interesting too. Each particle, atomic particle, like the nib of the pen, writing a destiny. Or they are the points inscribed by the pen of power, with each particle being a point. Then in every particle working in your eye, for example, there would have to be an eye such as which could see every limb and part of your body as well as the entire universe. So if you don't accept that someone is controlling this, he says a particle in your eye has to have the knowledge about your entire body and about the entire universe. And second impossibility, okay, 2 minutes. Your being resembles a thousand-domed, wondrous palace, like a palace, in which the stones stand together in suspension without any support. Where does he get all these things? Imagine. 80, 90, 100 years ago, where does he get this? You're like a palace, he goes, each stone that builds your body standing in suspension. They're not even touching each other. You know that that's true?
Atoms don't touch each other.
Atoms don't touch each other. It's true. Do you know that we don't touch anything either? You know, when we go like that, you say we touch the table, you're not really touching the table. There is no full connection. The atoms there and atoms in your palm, they're pushing each other when you come to it. That resistance makes you feel like you're touching something. You're not actually touching. So everything, including your body, everything is in suspension. That's what he says. Like, imagine, a building like this, there are bricks, but they're not touching each other. Keeping that building up.
For example, eat is something we don't eat real.
That's simulation.
No, you eat real. You eat real, but that connection, it's not a real connection. You're not all the way touching, but the chemicals it releases, your tongue has the detectors that detect the difference.
There's interaction.
That's what it is. There is interaction without touching. Yeah. Yeah, very interesting. So if these particles, these atoms, all these particles were not officials dependent on the command of the master architect of the universe, Allah, then each would have to be both absolutely dominant over the other particles in the body or absolutely subordinate. They need to be like slave to each other. And both equal to each, and with regard to its dominant position, opposed, and both the origin and source of most of the attributes that pertain only to the necessarily existent one, vacib, and extremely restricted. That's very interesting, isn't it? The way he thinks. Okay, inshallah, look, I'm going to stop there and I'll make that announcement because everyone is here before anyone goes. Unfortunately, we are stopping the Monday night sohbets. We are changing the schedule from now on.